Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back, and happy Friday. So, I just got back from seeing John Wick Chapter 4. I was originally going to make this video, like, in my car on the way home, but unfortunately, I didn't have my usual, like, mini tripod stand in the passenger seat with me, and the stand that a friend recently gave me to attach to my window. For some reason, the my phone kept on sliding off of the magnet. So, oh well, I'm doing it here. But anyway, I just got back from seeing John Wick Chapter 4, and holy smokes, I honestly think this is the best one yet in the franchise. If not the best. Um, yeah, that's what I said. Anyway, but I've been hearing rumors um, that this is gonna be the last John Wick, at least for a while. But if it is like the final John Wick film, then I'd say they went out on like a very high note. But getting right into like the nitty-gritty details, the story itself is amazing. Like, I mean, the action, of course, is great. I think this is the best action in the entire series, to be honest. Like all the stuff that happens in the trailers, like they only really give you a taste of it. Like you really gotta see this movie for yourself. Like there's an entire sequence that takes place in Osaka, which is fantastic. That's where you find I keep forgetting his name, but it's the actor who was it was the actor who he was recently in Bullet Train as the older man with the samurai sword. He was also in Avengers Endgame as the Yakuza boss who Hawkeye killed as Ronin, and he also played Lord Shingen in the Wolverine, as well as Scorpion in the newest Mortal Kombat film. But that's where we find his character. Uh, for the time that he has in this film, like dude's a great character. I'm not gonna say that he gets some of the best action scenes, but he does get a lot of good ones. Like there's some action sequences that like don't even necessarily feature John Wick, but but that's okay because like all the other characters, like you're invested in like what they're doing, and like they're fighting with like members of the High Table, right? There's this other whole like action set in, I believe it's Berlin, where John has to kill a certain person, and then like the final set is like in Paris, like in the trailers. Um, and like just getting trying not to spoil anything, but like getting into details about like all the ways that John like fights people and like goes toe to toe with everyone, whether it's like high table emissaries, like they brought back the emissaries back from the end of the third film, the ones who had like the bulletproof armor, or like just the people working for Bill Skarsgård's character, the Marquis, um, or even just like regular assassins, like all the different creative ways that John Wick fights and or kills people. Like as at some parts, it's kind of like a spectacle. Like you got that scene in the trailer where John is like in a car and like shooting people and fighting them, or he's like outside of the car with cars passing all around them, where it's it's basically like the deadliest game of Frogger. Um, like there's even this one scene there's this where there's this like a religious place in Paris that I can't remember the name, but like John basically has to climb these like 282 steps um to like reach the chapel or whatever it's called, and Like there's just this really great scene where like he's just climbing the stairs and just fighting people all the way across. That I haven't seen this movie, but I have seen like the scene in particular about it, where it kind of makes me think of the movie Old Boy, where that one guy with the hammer is like just going across this long corridor, and he's just fighting this room full of people, and every time that he knocks one down, like five more get up, and then like the guy that he previously knocked down, he eventually comes back as well. Like that whole sequence on the stairs just made me think of that. But the action is great. The cinematography around it is fantastic. Like not just the long shots or just one shots of people fighting. Like there's this entire sequence in Paris where John is like in this building, and like he gets this shotgun full of I believe they're called dragon's breath shotgun shells, where it's basically incendiary shells. But there's that entire sequence where he uses that shotgun, and the camera is like an overhead camera of John just going room to room, just killing people. Like it honestly felt like I was watching someone play one of those video games where like there's an overhead camera of your player like just mowing down enemies, like going from area to area, right? Uh, but and there's just so much stuff that I can say just on the action alone. So just to put a cap on it, like the action is fantastic, the best that I've seen throughout all four films. Uh, like like I said earlier, I think I heard from somewhere that John Wick 4 might be the last John Wick film, or at least the last one for a while, and that might actually be the smart move for now, because like I mean this just goes for the films in general, but like the action specifically, like as the movies went on, the action just got better and better. And like I think with John Wick 4, like they finally reached the peak. Like I'm not sure how they can top this. So I think they're doing the smart move, unlike the MCU, where they're just where they might be just taking a break for a while, which again, good for them. But enough talking about the action. The story itself is great. Like, I think this is one of the only. This is one of the only. Sorry, not the only, but like. This is like the one movie in the franchise, and this is gonna sound weird, but this is the one movie in the franchise that I feel like it had the most heart to it, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, I know in the first one, like it opens up with John's wife dying. He gets the dog, and then the gangster Vigo, like his son Yosef, he kills the dog, and that basically just sets the entire series into motion, because like this series literally started with like some Russian guy's son killed his dog just days after his wife was buried. So like John just goes like on a mission for revenge, right? But this one is the one where it felt like the stakes were actually raised, because like throughout John Wick 1, 2, and technically 3, like it more or less felt like the only person who could actually like suffer consequences for everything, even though like in the third film, like there was that looming threat of like actions have consequences, like for everybody, like Winston for the concierge, Sharon, I believe that's how his name is correctly pronounced, and then like his other friend, the Bowery King. But here, like it actually felt like that was reinforced, and I'll get to that in a minute. But like here, like that threat actually felt credible, where like John's life was at stake, Winston's life was at stake, like everyone's world could come crashing down like around them. At least that's what it felt like for this film. That, and the fact that like even some of the characters that are technically against John Wick, like they have their own reasons. Like Donnie Yen's character, the blind assassin, which I did think is a little bit funny that he more or less played like a rated R version of the character he played in Rogue One, minus the Force powers. But he's recruited by Bill Skarsgård because his character, the Marquis, he threatened Donnie Yen's daughter in the film. So, like, basically, he has no choice but to fight John Wick, even though, like, John and him, like, have a backstory together. But, um, but yeah, basically, everyone has their own reasons for what they do in this film, and, like, they're pretty good reasons too, like where you kind of rooting for basically almost everybody except for the Marquis, who is like who basically replaces the adjudicator from the third film. um I do kind of wish that she came back, which I don't know if that's a spoiler, but whatever. um but speaking of Bill Skarsgård's character, I actually was not sold on him until I saw the movie myself. Like, like I couldn't just stop thinking of him as like Pennywise from It. And then, like when he first appeared in the film, I thought he was gonna be like I thought he was gonna be like a one note villain who just makes empty threats and stuff. Until if you've seen the trailers, like you'll know what I'm talking about. But like, there's this specific scene where like he meets that one other character, Mr. Nobody, the one who has the dog, and he actually threatens the guy Nobody by stabbing a knife through his hand, and then giving him a terrible choice of either pulling the knife out or pulling his hand away, and which basically forces the guy to just rip his hand away and just mutilate himself. And like, just in that scene alone, like that just sold me that, like, yeah, this guy is like nuts. So I was so close to saying that like Bill Skarsgård in this movie was bad until I saw that scene. The music itself is fantastic. Like, you got the regular kind of music as always, and then you actually got like the this other kind of music towards the end of the film. That is like actual songs such as Paint It Black, but it's in a different language since like the scene takes place in Paris, and it's actually like woven into the story where the original contract that was placed on John's head way back in chapter 2, the one that got started by Santino Di Antonio, um, like it just kept on climbing and climbing and climbing, uh, up until I think it gets to about 40 million in towards the end of chapter 4, and it's broadcast in Paris, and the people who work for the High Table who broadcast the contract, they also broadcast music over like the assassins' radios, and one of the songs is Painted Black. And I thought that was a great way in actually like weaving the music into the actual story. But aside from that, like again, just the main themes from basically all four films like were just great. There were great callbacks to the first three films. Like, again, a lot of these sequences are shown in the trailers, but like they're just little snippets. Like the entire scene in Berlin, which is where basically like that waterfall scene of like John Wick throwing the axes and killing people. That's in Berlin, and like there's a lot of slow-mo shots that are just great. And like, again, with the cinematography, like there's all these different tricks that they use. Like I already talked about like the overhead shot angle that's used during this entire like building clear out that John Wick goes through. And like there's a lot of slow motion shots that are in Berlin. Um, And then there's like a lot of like fast-paced action sequences in like Osaka. And I could just keep going on about this film. Like there's still some stuff that I probably forgot on my way home that I'm probably gonna remember once this video is over. But basically, to summarize, like every good part about this film, like the stuff that they do great, like they fire off on all cylinders. It's like it's one of the best action movies I've seen of all time. Like it's like I said before, like so. One thing that I've seen a lot in movie series and franchises um, is that as the sequels keep going on, the movies like start to get worse and worse. One of the best examples is unfortunately Pirates of the Caribbean. Like that was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite movie series. Like I still like all of them, but I will admit like those haven't been like well received, especially as like the films kept going on and on. But this one, like I honestly do believe that like with every entry in the John Wick franchise, it just got better and better. Um, and carrying off of what I said a few minutes ago, like the stuff they can do well, like they do great, they fire off on all cylinders. Even the few nitpicks that I've had, um, like it's still not entirely bad to be honest. And as of now, I only have three nitpicks. Like the fourth would have been Bill Skarsgård's character, but like again, he sold me on that meeting with Mr. Nobody. But but right, I only have like three nitpicks with this film, and like they're technically minor, but a couple of them you do notice later on. And the first one, which by the way, I'm getting into spoilers for this scene, so if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you go and see it first. But the first nitpick I have is that like, which kind of goes hand in hand with the second one, is that there's a lot of times where like people get shot and stabbed, and like it's kind of sort of character specific because back to what I was saying about like the high table emissaries, like back in the third film, like John Wick basically had to empty an entire magazine of bullets into like just one of their heads because of just their heavy armor plating, like heavily armored helmets. But in this film, especially in the entire Osaka sequence, there are people coming at them with swords and bow and arrows, and I think a few people also had like axes that I don't know if there was just something with them being made of steel or if like there were just so many chinks in the armor. Because I did see a few scenes where John Wick was like basically pointing the gun underneath their helmets and pulling the trigger. So maybe they were doing that too. But like I could have sworn there were a few scenes where people were shooting bow and arrows right at the armored parts of the emissary guards, and like that did the trick in killing them. Like even with the Marquise's men, like there's this certain henchman of the Marquis who I don't even know his name. He had like the Marquis pendant on him, and he spoke in Spanish, I think. But like, I mean, first of all, he's like probably one of the coolest henchmen I've ever seen in a film because he just keeps on getting back up and like will just take an absolute extreme amount of punishment. But like even he straight up takes an arrow right to the arm that goes through his bulletproof suit. And again, I don't know if it was just the material that the arrow was made of, but I feel like if if the suit could stop a bullet, then I think an arrow should too. But maybe that's just me. And then the second part of it, which I count as the second nitpick, is just how much punishment and damage that not just John Wick, but like all these different characters take. Like And I didn't really notice it until towards the ending of the third film, where with that scene where Winston shoots John and he falls off the roof, and I can't remember if like he hit anything on the way down, but I know that like he just went splat on the concrete, where I honestly think he should have just been dead just from that fall alone. But then this film, like they take it up a notch, where not only is he falling from like extreme heights, but he's also getting like hit by speeding cars, especially during that scene in Paris with all the cars going by. People are throwing him into like glass cases. He's getting like the crap kicked out of him, and like just continuously getting shot, which again, bulletproof vest, so I guess there's that. But sorry. But again, like with all that punishment that he took, like there's a scene in Paris where he jumps out of a window, falls from several stories, and hits a car so hard, like he actually caves in the roof, and he literally just gets up and keeps on walking. Which I'm sorry, but I think that's too much for my suspension of disbelief. At this point, I honestly think that like they're going by video game rules at this point, because like again, it's almost like Grand Theft Auto, where you can get hit by a car and just get back up. But that's at least how I see it. And then the final nitpick that I have in this, and it's a huge nitpick too. Well, sorry, not a huge one, but like it's a pretty big spoiler, especially for the third film. Um, so like the first 10 or 15 minutes, basically undoes everything that happened in John Wick Chapter 3, or at the very least, like it wraps it up way too soon, where the whole point of Chapter 3 was about like John Wick swearing his fealty to the Elder, and then like quickly throwing that away. The Continental Hotel gets consecrated. Um, the Continental gets consecrated, but then like it got lifted because Winston killed John Wick. But then they basically undo all of that, where in the first 10 minutes, John goes back to the Middle East. He kills the new elder who replaced the old one. I guess the old one died between movies. But he kills the new elder. Um, Winston and Sharon meet the Marquis, who not only condemns the Continental Hotel, he just blows it up. So I think that made the whole like the consecration and then lifting it like just pointless. And then in the same scene, he kills Sharon, which I'll be honest, I don't know how planned that was, but considering that Lance of Reddick just died last week, I feel like I don't know, that thing. I don't know. It just felt weird, in my opinion. And I know that thing like couldn't have been foreseen or anything, but I don't know. But anyway, but my point is like, basically the first 10 minutes of John Wick 4 just completely undoes everything that happened in John Wick 3. So I honestly think that either the first 10 minutes should have been how John Wick 3 ended, or they should have. Well, actually, no. I do think that's how they should have ended John Wick 3, where instead of lifting the deconsecration, instead they go straight to the Marquis or the adjudicator, who decides that the hotel is condemned. It gets blown up, and then it ends with with Sharon dying. right? Um, and that's how it will have ended. And then that will have springboarded into John Wick 4. Or either that, or there could have been like another movie before John Wick, but set after 3, where where John basically goes after the Elder, and Sharon dies, the Continental gets blown up, and then like John Wick 4 becomes like the 5th film, right? But that's just me. Anyway, but that's really the only things I had against the film, because overall, like, it was still a fantastic movie. Like, I definitely see it again in theaters. I'm definitely gonna see like the spinoff that Anna de Armas is in, Ballerina. Um, and considering where the movie franchise left off, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they go forward with it, especially with spinoffs like the Anna de Armas movie, since John Wick is gonna be in it apparently. Um, and if this really is John Wick's final outing, then I think that they went out on a really, really high note. And I think that just wraps up my thoughts for this film. So definitely go see it yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next one.